cold. It's freaking cold. That's what I thought. I'm away from the J.R. Van Pelt Library to my car by the Memorial Union before writing this paper. It's a thought that near every Michigan Tech student thinks at one point or another during their term here at school. So, if this place is so cold, it makes me wonder what the heck led somebody to settle the UP of Michigan. And everyone will tell you the only reason that civilization is up here, besides inebriated hunters, is copper. So, who found all the copper up here in the UP? Who led them here? And what challenges did they face besides the friggin' cold? And so began my journey. And first I solved my chill with a little espresso, and then to the internet. Did you know that the query Copper Country in Google generates 9 links out of 10 related to the UP? From Wikipedia, I learned that Indians harvested copper from the area as much as 5,000 years ago. And in 1667, Claude Allouez, a French missionary, wrote the first European account of copper in the area. However, Americans didn't harvest copper from the UP until shortly after Douglas Houghton reported copper deposits in the area on the pictured map in 1841. I found no more useful information about Allouez and copper, but Dr. Douglas Houghton led an interesting life for sure. After being licensed to practice medicine in 1831, Houghton moved to Detroit, where, after performing a series of lectures for people's entertainment, Henry Schoolcraft realized the young doctor's geological interests and sent him on a series of expeditions in the upper Mississippi Valley and Lake Superior as a physician/naturalist, where he both treated Indians for common diseases to the Europeans and cataloged new plant varieties never seen before. These surveys and explorations kept bringing Houghton back to the UP and eventually landed him the position of state geologist shortly after Michigan became a state in 1837. 7 years later, after yearly surveys, Houghton organized a combined linear and geological survey to try and finish up his work in the UP. Unfortunately, it was on this expedition that Houghton met his maker. Declining weather conditions in Lake Superior caused his boat to get swamped, and him and a few members of his crew were drowned. And then I found the gold mine. Copper, if your name is Houghton, Helker, or Quincy. I managed to stumble upon the first copy of Douglas Houghton memoirs down in the Copper Country Archives of Michigan Tech. At first, I didn't think I could check it out, because that's what the lady at the front desk said. But then, after a quick little search, I found out that there are 5 copies on the 3rd floor. So, I got one. And that Tuesday is where my research more or less stopped until Sunday night. That was a mistake. I found 6 more sources, but skimming through these works was work. And doing this brought me beyond the point of frustration. So I thought that maybe, just maybe, someone somewhere would write about what Houghton's journeys were like, where he struggled, who fought spending money on the surveys, and didn't see it. I don't think I was searching as hard as I needed to at first, but it sure doesn't seem like a man whom, according to one of my sources, High Bells, was known to break the reserve of a coach full of strangers, would face much opposition. He was also called life of the party, and this guy was everyone's friend. So, what happened next was pure luck. After hitting as many things which I considered dead ends as I did, I wanted to interview a local historian who could perhaps point me in the correct direction. So I felt a natural place to find one such person would be the Carnegie Museum of downtown Houghton. I was greeted there by an employee who was knowledgeable, but she didn't feel as if she'd be a good source. Now the good part is that she directed me to the Portage Lake Community Library down the street. Now the darn lucky part. After asking a couple questions, I met a gentleman by the name of Jim Curtis. Now let me tell you about Jim. Jim is a normal, middle-aged Joe with a son in the U.S. Army, a daughter in school, and a wife at home. But what makes Jim so awesome is that he's writing a book about Douglas Houghton. Jim is writing a book about the man I have been chasing across pages of memoirs, websites, and other sources. Praise Jesus. And on top of everything, this friendly Joe lets me schedule an interview with him the next day, the day before this next rough draft was due. Score. And then it was interview prep time. If I tried to interview a guy with a bookload of knowledge in his head and no questions, I wouldn't have enough paper to write down what he had to say. So I wrote down 11 good ones. Reading those would be really boring. So the best thing I can do is summarize what I came away with from this interview in a little spiel about good old Douglas. So you start with the short man at 5'4", and you add in a zeal for learning imbued by his parents. Blend in an education from Rensselaer Polytech with strong backgrounds in geology and a medical degree, and then you top off this man with a will and drive unmatched by anyone else with his interests. So what is this man capable of? As my interviewee put it, what didn't he do? On his yearly expeditions as state geologist, Houghton laid out townships, immunized thousands of Native Americans against smallpox, constructed an inventory of natural resources, contracted pneumonia several times, lugged huge surveying tools around the state, and as he did all of this, Houghton would periodically stop to focus on one little thing that he didn't know much about. And a lot of the time that topic would be botanicals, things that he hadn't seen before that he wanted to tell everyone else about. So he logged approximately 200 of these, according to one of my sources. However, while in the know of Douglas Houghton's accomplishments, as Curtis told me, if you ask someone who discovered copper in the Keweenaw, they would likely say, Douglas Houghton. He confirmed that this is not necessarily the truth, like my other sources have told me. What Houghton did do, which I couldn't find in my other sources, was that he promoted the copper in his resource inventory to the government and to the people in general. At the time of his death, he didn't even know specifically how much copper was there, but he did know that it was abundant. I like the quote that I got out of my interview with Jim. He told me the only reason that Douglas Houghton didn't accomplish more was because of his death. And this brings me back to the beginning of my paper and why I started in the first place, trying to find out why people would settle up here in the copper country. Now, my proposal to you is that I want you to help me to find out how much money was generated for the entire state that was struggling so much at the time, was so poor. How much money was generated by this copper boom? And with a team of researchers, I'm confident we could find this out and, really justify why people do live up here. So, thanks guys. Thanks for everything. Hope you enjoyed the video.